This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. 2 days ago, we saw Meghan Markle gracing the Aspire with Emma Greed podcast with what I'm calling her most arrogant, manipulative performance to date. If you missed my savage takedown of part 1, where I exposed the lies and fraud peppered throughout the 90-minute disaster, check the video link in the description below. But today, we're diving into part 2, looking a bit deeper into this woman's calculated charade. This isn't about her fake smiles or curated jams. It's about understanding the deliberate, conniving tactics of a woman who's allergic to the truth, doesn't understand the word authenticity, and resembles anything but trust. So let's dig into this mess that we call Meghan Markle. But first, let's quickly recap. The Aspire with Emma Greed episode is supposed to be a so-called candid chat about Meghan's lifestyle brand, as ever, whatever brand, and the trials of Meghan building this business under a tremendous amount of scrutiny. Emma Greed, a legit businesswoman behind Good American and Skims, plays the host, but it's clear both of them are there to use each other. Emma wanted the global visibility, and for Meghan, it's just another attempt at image rehab and continued enforcement of her lies. In part 1, I highlighted Meghan's blatant ignorance in the business world and her cringeworthy attempt to lecture Emma on the term imposter syndrome, despite clearly not grasping it herself. Remember this?
I think I speak to so many founders, and more often than not, they feel some sense of imposter syndrome. And I have so many women that will say to me, didn't you feel or don't you feel imposter syndrome? And my answer is always no. I'm like, if not you, then who? Like, why would you feel that way?
Why would you feel that way?
Nothing is the same because you're never doing it in the same time, in the same culture, with the same people.
Yes, and even if you're making it up as you go along, as you say, which I think, true, most people are doing that. Imposter syndrome is when you're posturing as though you know everything. Mm-hmm. You don't need to posture as though you know everything. Imposter syndrome is when you're posturing as though you know everything. Mm-hmm. You don't need to posture as though you know everything.
No, you are so dumb. You are really dumb, for real.
So Meghan's overbearing alpha demeanor meant Emma didn't push back, either because she's equally clueless about the term or because she was too intimidated to correct Meghan's nonsense. Now, all throughout this podcast, I could sense this subtle power struggle with Meghan desperate to assert her dominance. As I pointed out in part 1, there were moments where Meghan visibly tried to one-up Emma, all to just assert her so-called superiority. I mean, it's breathtaking to watch how arrogant Meghan was all throughout this entire show.
A piece of advice I was given years ago as an auditioning actress was don't try to book the part, book the room. Meaning it doesn't matter if you don't get that role. You might not be right for it. You might remind the director of an ex-girlfriend that broke his heart. It could be any number of reasons. It's not about the part. You're going to see those producers and those casting directors at so many other opportunities. Book the room. Let them see that you're talented. Let them see you have something to bring to the table.
I pretended that I was union, and you have to.
Yo, she pretended she was union. She lied to him. She lied to the casting director saying that she was union. So let's go back. We'll go back here. Here we go.
I pretended that I was union, and you have to. It was a pilot called Century City with Hector Elizondo and Johan Griffith, and
she forgets to mention Viola Davis, who was Academy Award winner and one of the main characters apparently in this series, and so much for female black empowerment. Hey Meghan, you didn't even mention the Academy Award winner was in the show because obviously she'd outshine you, wouldn't she?
I got there and they were like, so you're union? I'm like, of course I'm union. Yeah, absolutely I'm union. And then I wasn't. And casting, to this day, those casting directors will never hire me. They never, I can't even remember what their names were.
You told them you were
I told them I was union, and then they had to Taft-Hartley me, which really is just like them sending one piece of paperwork to the union, but it makes you...
You're the Mike Ross of...
I was such a fraud.
Yeah, she's such a fraud. So she's just sort of... She thinks so highly of herself. It's like, oh, it's just like a little bit of paperwork, you can do. That's not the point, Meghan. You lied to him, and that put him in a position where they had to get you into the union. Otherwise, they'd have to redo all the shoot. You got Viola Davis, Academy Award winner. They're going to have to redo a full shoot. I've seen the scene. She was in the scene with a lot of people. They would have all had to come back. If they said, "No, fuck you, Meghan. Can you piss off? We're going to hire somebody else." So she tricked them. She basically said afterwards that she was not union. So they had to Taft-Hartley, which is filling out some forms.
No, you are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
You're going to see those producers and those casting directors at so many other opportunities.
We have to remember that this woman is an actress. Everything that we see in front of us is all an act. In part 2 now, we're dissecting Meghan's manipulation tactics, which she unwittingly exposes. Every line in this Aspire with Emma interview was meticulously scripted, rehearsed, and practiced to perfection. It doesn't matter if it contradicts anything that she has said before. This is the script.
When you think about the failure rate for first-time entrepreneurs, does that ever concern you? Have you even let your mind go there?
I do not think about failing. No.
You're not scared of failing?
Is anything actually a failure, ultimately? Because you're going to learn from it.
You see, Meghan knows she's a failure, but she will never give anyone the satisfaction of admitting that she messed up. And that the reason why people don't like her is because of her behavior. She's not going to ever acknowledge that or even think for a second that maybe she holds some fault in the reason why she has failed so badly. So for her to say that she'll learn from it, no, she hasn't learned a thing. In fact, she just keeps doing the same thing over and over. And this is why people think she's crazy. Now, I'd like to say here is one rare instance where I'll actually give Meghan credit for saying something that is actually meaningful. Even though we know that it was scripted and she doesn't actually embody it, she's right. Is anything really considered a failure? Especially if you learn from it. Now, we know that Meghan hasn't learned from anything because she keeps doing the same thing over and over. And if her goal is to become some billionaire, she's not getting anywhere near that in her lifetime if she keeps this up. I mean, that's just my opinion. I would consider that a failure. But, for us regular folks who value and are grateful for everything that we have in our life, sure, everything is a teachable moment to where you could say, well, things didn't work out here, but there's a reason why. There's a reason why it didn't happen for me, right? When one door closes, another one opens. So you see what Meghan did here. Instead of admitting that she has failed, she's saying that no, she doesn't see failure. Well, you cannot learn from failure if you don't see yourself as having failure. And this is why Meghan continues to keep doing the same thing over and over. See, Meghan doesn't have the ability to learn because if she thinks that she never fails, then there's nothing to learn from. This woman is a complete idiot.
No matter what happens. But no, I feel confident in what I've been dreaming up for so long. I feel confident in the partner that I have.
Confident in the partner that I have. And I feel really proud of the team that I have.
Now, right there, just by her micro expressions and forced replies, Meghan is clearly irked that the world isn't fawning over her. Nobody likes her, not even the people that are working with her. But she's trying to make it sound convincing because she's got to sell this brand. No amount of self-assurance hides Meghan's misery. That is an angry woman. Only someone who is deeply unsatisfied with themselves and their life has to keep up this facade and doubling down and proving it to everyone. Whoever the dark forces are that sunk millions into this failing stunt, they're not happy either with how all of this has turned out. Yet, Meghan persists, desperate to force everyone into these narratives.
So that's not an option.
It's not an option.
No.
I love that you say that's not an option because there's just such an intense narrative around everything that you do. I can't imagine not being a bit scared. Like, I'm always scared when I start something, but nobody's even watching me. Like, I get to fail in a corner.
I think Meghan was completely uncomfortable throughout this whole session. She was so busy trying to remember what she had rehearsed.
I'm not saying that there aren't moments where I don't feel scared. Of course you do. But as I've continued to say to myself, and whatever I'm going through, my faith is greater than my fear.
Now, at this point, if this was a serious sit down and interview, then the natural question in this conversation would have been, well, Meghan, what is your faith? Like, what is your purpose? What is your goal in life? Because everything so far has just been so vaguely displayed for the world. Like, nobody really understands where Meghan's vision is going. It's just a lot of her talking these various narratives, virtue signaling to the world, but with absolutely no substance behind it.
I believe in myself. I believe in the team around me. I believe in our potential for success. And is that the same metric that someone else is putting on it? No.
And this is what makes Meghan a narcissistic, self-centered idiot. You mean to tell me that she doesn't have to adhere to any metrics? Well, tell that to Netflix, because I'm pretty sure that they're going to hold you to certain metrics to get their return on investment. And when they don't see it, they're going to be kicking you to the curb. But of course, Meghan will see that as a success story, just like when she went over to Lemonada after Spotify kicked her to the curb. See, what Meghan's not understanding is if your business is not profitable, then your whole team and your partner all will go away. So you have to have some level of urgency and seriousness about making sure that the business succeeds. And you do need to have a little bit of fear that it could possibly fail and you could lose it all, unless you just don't care, which I believe is really the whole thing to all of this, is that Meghan doesn't care because this is not her primary objective. Like you just heard Meghan say, her faith is greater than her fear. So the question is, what is your faith? And when we talk about that, what is your purpose? Is it to serve God? Is it to serve some deep state? Is it to serve Satan? What is it, Meghan? All of this that we're seeing with this woman we're told to call Meghan Markle is a show. None of it is truthful. None of it is authentic. So when she sits there and she goes on and talks about authenticity and she talks about words and language, now you start to understand literally what is going on here and what she is trying to do. Take a listen to what she says right here.
The way that you speak about both imposter syndrome and failure, because these are two things that, again, uniquely are in the kind of language of so many female founders. And they're real for so many people, and that's fine. But I do also want to demystify the idea that, like, we have to feel that we have to go around feeling really scared, and we have to believe that this is not a journey for us. And so I wonder what in your life and your history has got you to the point where you can feel like that.
I say it again, Meghan didn't understand the definition of imposter syndrome. I think when Meghan was explaining it, she was thinking of the word imposter, somebody who was fake, someone who was pretending to be something that they're not. And it's in this moment where you understand what Meghan is really doing here. It's not about the business. It's about what Meghan and Harry have been doing for the last 7 years. Listen closely to what she says about words and language. Meghan in this moment is not talking about her business.
Well, I think words matter. And I think certain words and terms become very topical and trendy, and they just become part of the vernacular.
Oh, yeah, I believe that.
Right? And at a certain point, you go, why do I keep reinforcing this idea?
If you've watched the news or followed politics, chances are you've heard the term Orwellian thrown around in one context or another. But have you ever stopped to think about what it really means or why it's used so often? The term was named after British author Eric Blair, known by his pen name George Orwell. Because his most famous work, the novel 1984, depicts an oppressive society under a totalitarian government, Orwellian is often used simply to mean authoritarian. But using the term in this way not only fails to fully convey Orwell's message, it actually risks doing precisely what he tried to warn against. Orwell was indeed opposed to all forms of tyranny, spending much of his life fighting against anti-democratic forces of both the left wing and the right. But he was also deeply concerned with how such ideologies proliferate. and one of his most profound insights was the importance that language plays in shaping our thoughts and opinions. The government of 1984's Oceania controls its people's actions and speech in some ways that are obvious. Their every move and word is watched and heard. And the threat of what happens to those who step out of line is always looming overhead. Other forms of control are not so obvious. The population is inundated with a constant barrage of propaganda, made up of historical facts and statistics manufactured in the Ministry of Truth. The Ministry of Peace is the military. Labor camps are called joy camps. Political prisoners are detained and tortured in the Ministry of Love. This deliberate irony is an example of doublespeak, when words are used not to convey meaning, but to undermine it, corrupting the very ideas they refer to. The regime's control of language goes even further, eliminating words from the English language to create the official dialect of Newspeak, a crudely limited collection of acronyms and simple concrete nouns, lacking any words complex enough to encourage nuanced or critical thought. This has an effect on the psyche Orwell calls doublethink, a hypnotic state of cognitive dissonance in which one is compelled to disregard their own perception in place of the officially dictated version of events, leaving the individual completely dependent on the state's definition of reality itself. The result is a world in which even the privacy of one's own thought process is violated, where one may be found guilty of thought crime by talking in their sleep. And keeping a diary or having a love affair equals a subversive act of rebellion. This might sound like something that can only happen in totalitarian regimes. But Orwell was warning us about the potential for this occurring even in democratic societies. And this is why authoritarian alone does not Orwellian make. In his essay Politics and the English Language, he described techniques like using pretentious words to project authority, or making atrocities sound acceptable by burying them in euphemisms and convoluted sentence structures. But even more mundane abuses of language can affect the way we think about things. The words you see and hear in everyday advertising have been crafted to appeal to you and affect your behavior, as have the sound bites and talking points of political campaigns, which rarely present the most nuanced perspective on the issues. And the way that we use ready-made phrases and responses, gleaned from media reports or copied from the internet, makes it easy to get away with not thinking too deeply or questioning your assumptions. So the next time you hear someone use the word Orwellian, pay close attention. If they're talking about the deceptive and manipulative use of language, they're on the right track. If they're talking about mass surveillance and intrusive government, they're describing something authoritarian, but not necessarily Orwellian. And if they use it as an all-purpose word for any ideas they dislike, it's possible their statements are more Orwellian than whatever it is they're criticizing. Words have the power to shape thought.
And they just become part of the vernacular.
Oh yeah, I believe that.
Right? And at a certain point you go, why do I keep reinforcing this idea? Because it's topical, right? And I ultimately believe the more that you can change your thoughts, you're going to change the things around you.
So you're a big believer in mindset?
You have to train your mind to literally be so focused on what your goal is, to be so, as I said in the podcast I was doing, laser focused on what your intention is. There isn't room for a tremendous amount of self-doubt with that. It will be there. But when it appears, you have to train yourself out of it.
You got to shut it down.
Yeah, and I don't think that it's helpful to indulge some of the language that is going to be self-limiting.
And that right there is what you call doublespeak. Meghan and Harry want censorship. Meghan and Harry are authoritarians. They are Nazis, in my opinion. Meghan wants words to be censored. She doesn't want to hear things that are negative about her, just because she doesn't find that that's helpful. But if everybody is blowing smoke up her butt, There's no room for growth for this woman. If people keep telling her how fabulous and great she is and everything is wonderful, then there's no way that she can learn from it. You have to have both sides. You have to have the good and the bad, Meghan. You can't just have the good all the time, because at some point, that good is going to start turning bad for you. Because whatever this woman does, she will never be satisfied. Never be satisfied with what she currently has. Everything that we've been seeing from this woman, the lies, the contradictions, all of this doesn't matter to her because she is carrying out some type of an agenda. I don't know what it is yet, but it does feel like she has been on the world stage for the last 8 years auditioning for some type of role in politics, because clearly the woman has what it takes to lie her face off and pretend nothing is wrong, like what Gavin Newsom does, what the whole Democrat Party does. Meghan has what it takes to be a Democrat politician. Not only are they corrupt to the core, but they don't believe anything that they're saying, but feel like they are the ruling class. And this is what we see with this Marxist, communist, authoritarian dictator, Meghan Markle. Now, don't get me wrong, there are Republicans who are equally as corrupt as some of these Democrats, but for the most part, it's the Democrats. And Meghan is literally the face of what they represent. That's why they lost. That's why nobody likes them. That's why they are being seen as the chaos. They are being seen as the one that has put us in this turmoil. It's exactly what Meghan represents. Everything that we have seen from this woman has been nothing but destructive. It's the same thing that's being played out on a global stage. And this saga with Meghan, as you all know, I believe that there's more to it just being Meghan failing at everything. There's a reason why she's failing. There's a reason why she's lying so much. There's a reason why nothing that we have been told about this woman ever adds up. Every single thing about this woman that has been put out there into the media has had some type of controversy one way or another. From her birthday all the way to did she give birth to these 2 phantom kids? Nothing is straightforward. And what we see is the same pattern, the same behavior with the people that are allegedly called her family. None of their stories add up, and their histories, as well as the various contradicting stories by each one of them. Now, for those that have been following me for a while, you understand the position that I have now looking at this saga. It's very different to a lot of other content creators who talk about Harry and Meghan, and that is totally okay. I think we all offer something unique to our viewers, and if you can walk away with something that you learned or something that you can apply, then even better. And that's what I hope that this channel is doing for you. So I'll leave you at that, but this is my take and final say. I don't want to talk about this interview anymore because, quite frankly, it is very manipulative in what she has been doing. And it really is about language. It really is about enforcing messages and narratives. And that's exactly what this woman is doing. It doesn't matter if people didn't like it. It doesn't matter if Meghan is going to do it again. It doesn't matter how many times the media is going to put the same story into the public domain. The point is that Meghan believes that she can change your thoughts, my thoughts, into what they see and what they want. Remember, Harry gave it away from the very beginning in that engagement interview when he said that he wanted the youth to see the world in the right way. That's what he said. If you look back and you think about how they are trying to get words banned, to suppress people's voices, to only have one narrative, and it's their narrative. They want you to see Harry's truth. I mean, he wrote Spare for that purpose. He wrote that book to say, hey, those are his words. That's how it's going to go. That's what they want. They want to be the ones in control of writing the history. Now, until the U.S. government steps in to investigate these two, we're going to continue to keep seeing more of the same from Meghan Markle. Meghan is going to continue down this rebranding path of being this entrepreneur, founder, whatever. We'll see more pap walks. We'll see more awards being bought. all to shake off and distance themselves from the crap that they have been involved with from the Biden regime. You know, it's going to take a little more time, but I believe it's coming, especially if we continue to keep talking about it. And that's what I need you to do. Do not get distracted with this garbage. Recognize that this woman is up to no good, especially when you listen to her words and what she says, especially in that moment where she understands how to use language. So, but definitely let me know your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Such a fraud.